Yeah, hello everyone. So yesterday's class we are able to insert the data, right? So let me test remaining APIs. So what are all the APIs we have written? Find employee, create employee, update employee, delete employee, and find all employees. So let me start the server. Server started successfully. So yesterday we have written a logic to insert the data in in-memory database, right? With the help of entity manager. So to insert the data in database with the help of JPA, so we have used entity manager. With the help of entity manager, we are going to perform all insert or update operations, right? So let me uh, open the REST client. Okay, so Talent API. Now create a, before inserting the data. So let me check HT in memory database admin connect. Start. So it doesn't have any queries, right? So it doesn't have any data. So now let me insert the data. You can see record one is inserted successfully. So let me insert proper data, guys. Rohit Sharma. Okay. So we no need to pass ID because ID will generated by Hibernate. So we no need to send the ID. So how ID is going to generate? So you can see in our entity class we have annotation called @generated value. So Hibernate will generate primary key of our employee table. So it will auto increment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Okay, so we no need to pass employee ID to insert it. So let me insert one more record. So let me insert another record. Virat Kohli. So let me open the H2 console. Run. See how many records are inserted. 1, 2, 3. So age, ID, mobile number, email, first name and last name. So if you observe, the database columns are not in order, right? So because so this table is generated by Hibernate. So we haven't generated this table. So the moment you start the server, so Hibernate will generate the our entity table, right? So employee table in database. So order we cannot uh, expect as is. Okay, so now we can see there is a 1, 2, 3. So 2 3 records I have inserted, right? So now let me try to fetch all the employees. So how we can fetch? So with the help of find all employees, let me go to Talent API. Then you can fetch all employees. So what is the HTTP request method to fetch all the employees? It should be get request. So let me send the request. So you can see we are able to fetch all the employees. So now let me update the employee. So what is the API to update the employee? Update employee is the API. So let me add update employee. So what is the HTTP request method? It should be. So what I have given, let me check. So update post request only. So okay. So we can give either post or put. Put also we can use to update. So let me give post itself. So now send. So you can see Virat Kohli. So I haven't updated anything, right? So let me. So if you want to update, right, we have to send the ID. If you want to update, we have to send the ID. So because we should send the primary key, right? So which record we are going to update? So let's say how many records are there in database as of now? 1, 2, 3. So let me run again. So 1 to 4 records are there. So now I want to update record number 2. So record number 2 is having Rohit at gmail.com and Rohit. So record number 2 is having Rohit Sharma. So now let me pass ID 2. Okay, so employee number 2. So now what I am going to update. So let me check. So what are the things are there? So user employee 2 Rohit Sharma, right? So I am going to change as a Sachin. Sachin Tendulkar. Mobile number I will put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so here I will give. I am updating all the values. You just need to observe. So how many records are there in database currently? You can see I'm just refreshing it. Total 4 records we have. We are going to update record number 2. So record number 2 is having data Rohit Sharma and Rohit Sharma, right? So on mobile number is this one. So now let me send the request with the help of update employee API. So now I'm sending the request. So what it's written? Bad request. Why it's saying bad request update employee to Sachin and Tendulkar? Is there anywhere I have missed out comma or somewhere? Let me check. So we'll read the error properly. So JSON per unexpected comma separated object entity. Somewhere was comma is expected. Somewhere I missed out the comma. Yeah, you can see. So if you read the error, it is clearly saying what it is saying. Comma is expected. Was expecting comma. You can see. You can read the error message. Was expecting comma to separate object entities. It is clearly saying your request itself incorrect. Bad request, right? So now comma. So where I have missed out after ID, I have missed out the comma. So now let me send the request again. So I got the success response. So employee number 2 is having Sachin Tendulkar. So let me go to the database. So earlier, so before refreshing the data, so you can see employee 2 is having Rohit Sharma, right? So mobile number is 757. So I'm querying it again. Just execute the query. So once you execute the query, you can see still we have a 4 records and employee number 2 is updated with Sachin Tendulkar. So our update employee API is also working properly. So now what is the next? Let me find the employee. So there is a find employee API also, right? So get mapping. So let me find the employee. So go to your browser and pause the find employee. So find employee should require input, right? So we need to pass path variable. What is the HTTP request method? Get request. So go to check in your database. So how many employees we have? We have total 4 employees. So I'm trying to search which employee. Instead of 2, let me search 3. Okay, and find employee 3. So who is the employee 3? You can see employee 3 is having Virat Kohli. Employee 3 is having Virat Kohli. So employee 4 also Virat Kohli. Yeah. So to find unique, let me try. Uh, Use employee 1. Okay, I want to fetch employee 1 which is having Rohit Sharma. So let me go there. Employee 1. Send request. You can see we got the response. Employee 1 is having Rohit Sharma. So we are able to successfully fetch the find the employee in database. So now next, what other API? So delete employee. So there is another API called delete employee. So let me. This is the get mapping with the get mapping. I'm deleting the employee, right? So delete employee is the API. Go to your browser, your REST client, and then call that API and should be get, and we need to pass respective employee ID. Let me try to delete employee 3. So you can see in database how many records we have. 4 records we have. So now I am trying to delete employee number 3, Virat Kohli. So we should have 1, 2, 4 after deleting the record 3, right? So let me go to the REST client and send the request. So, since it is a void, there is no response back, but we got the how we can confirm? We got success response 200. That means our request went successfully. So now let me open the H2 console. Now we can execute that query. You can see employee 3 is deleted. Now we have 1, 2, and 4. So this is how we can perform CRUD operations with JPA or Hibernate with the help of entity uh, manager, right? So in employee repository, there is entity manager. With the help of entity manager, we can perform insert or update operations. So now I want to explain you what is happening in the background. So as of now, so by using JPA, right, we haven't written any queries. You can see we have to find, we haven't written the query. To insert or update, we haven't written the query. Insert employee query, we haven't written. And to find all employees only, we have written. Because entity manager, we need to write the HQL queries. So for that only we have written. That is also not normal query. It was a HQL query or P, persistence query language. So we haven't written normal queries. So similarly for delete also, to perform delete operation also, we haven't written any queries. So all the operations we are performing with entities called your Pojo class object. So we no need to write the queries in JPA. Okay, so now I want to show you what is happening in background whenever you are invoking each individual API. So let me open the console. So let me open the Hibernate property. So we can see the SQL queries, right, which are generating. So if you want to check what is happening in background for each API, so you have to enable this property in application.properties spring.jpa.show-sql equal true. If you enable this property, we can see the generated queries. Hibernate will generate the queries for us. Okay, so now let me show you an example. So employee repository. So now create employee. So create employee, right? We are not written insert query. We have not written insert query to insert the data. So who will create that insert query? Hibernate will take care of it or JPA will take care of it. So now what we'll do? So let me open the console and I am going to send one more request. Why two tabs are instead of two tabs? Let me open it here itself. So now from here, so I want to create the employee. I want to show you what is happening in background. Create employee. So what is the HTTP request method? Post. So now we no need to send the ID, right, to insert. So before inserting, I want to check how many records are there. So you can see currently we have 3 records. So now let me send another record. Like fourth record, I will say Ramesh. Ramesh and okay, so something, some random number I'm giving. Okay, and Ramesh and his age I am changing 30. So now if you open, so I have cleared the console. You can see there is nothing is there in the console. I just cleared the console. Now send the request. I am trying to create the employee, new employee. If you open the console, if you see Hibernate is generated, insert query. You can see Hibernate is generated, insert into employee query in background. So we no need to write the queries in Hibernate or JPA. So JPA will take care of it. So whenever merge method is being called to insert the record, so in background what is happening? So JPA is trying to create insert into employee query. JPA is generated, insert into employee query to insert the data. Okay, similarly, so what will happen if I update the record? So now same API you can call her. So now to create API, right? So since we are using merge method, so using merge method, we can, as discussed yesterday, what are all the operations will perform by merge method? Merge method will perform insert or update. If record present, it will update the record. If record not present, then it will insert the new record. So I want to update the record. I want to prove you that. So now I am create employee only. I am invoking the API. So I need to pass the ID. So let me go to the H2 console and how many uh, records are there? So now we have 4 records, right? So we have 4 records. Now I want to update Virat Kohli fourth record. So use employee number 4. So employee number 4. So third record we have deleted, right? So now we have fourth record. So fourth record I am going to update. So by using create employee API only. Okay. So now I need to pass the ID to update the record. So now for what is the data present for fourth employee for Virat Kohli, right? So now I will update with Sehwag. Okay, Virendra Sehwag. So now if you open the console, so let me clear the console to show you. So okay, anyway, I'm going to update, right? So this I'm going to clear the console. So now go and send the request. So what will happen? So still I am calling create employee API. So create employee API in repository we are using merge method. So create employee we are using merge method. So the moment we send the request, so if record is present already, you can see how many records we have? 4 records. So I'm going to update employee number 4. Employee number 4 already available in database. So if you still try to create it, what will happen? Let's see. I just send the request. You can see we got the updated details. You can see employee 4 with Sehwag. Employee 4 with Sehwag. Now we can go and check the console. So what is the employee number 4 data earlier? Virat Kohli. Now let me execute select star for employee. So now we can see what is the details. So new record is not inserted. If you observe it, so what which API have invoked create employee API. So even if you create employee API, if you execute, so what is happening? New record is not inserted. So since employee 4 is available in database, so that record is updated in database. So merge method, what operation will perform? Either insert or update. If record is present, it will update the record. If record is not present, it will insert the new record. So if you check in the console, you can see it is created update employee query. You can see it has been created update employee query. So who is created this? Created by Hibernate. So we no need to write the query to update the employee. Hibernate is created update employee query for us. Okay, guys. So everything is happening in background. So now let me first what it will check before updating. First it will execute the query. You can see background. So before updating, it is checking whether that record is present or not. It is executing select query. So select query, it is updating. If it is present, then it is trying to update the employee. So now what will happen? You can see now again. So let me clear the console. What I will do? So I will not modify the data. I will not modify the data. With the same data, I am trying to send the request. What will happen? Whether this record is going to update or not. So let me show you. So this record is not going to update. So the employee number 4 is having Sehwag, Virendra Sehwag. I haven't changed the any values. I haven't changed the any values. I am trying to send the request. What will happen? It will not update the record since there is no data changes in request. So you can see send the request. What will happen? See, if you open the console, what is happening? it is trying to select the query, but it is not generated update record. If you observe, it is not generated update record because Hibernate internally it will maintain the versioning. Hibernate will maintain internally versioning concept. So whenever uh, merge method, what it will do, whenever the already record is present, so what will happen, it will update the record. So in this case, what is happening, it's not updated the record, it is not generated the update query. Why? Because data is same, so I haven't modified the data, so same data I'm sending again, so it will not create the update uh, query, since there is no data changes in database for this employee number 4. So now let me, if I change Sevag 1, now you can check the console. So I'm clearing the console. What will happen now? I have changed the data now. So let me send the request. If you check the console, this time what is happening? This time there is a changes. So since changes are there, Hibernate is generating update employee statement. You are getting my point, right, guys? It's very easy. So you have to understand the concept. Some people will ask you in interview, what merge method will do, what will happen if I send same request, whether it is going to update or not, and what will happen if I already record present, and what will happen if there is no record present. So you have to answer it. Okay, so now similar, now find by id. So let me execute find by id API. What will happen in background? So let me clear the console and go to uh, REST client. So what is the API name? So find employee. So find employee. I am going to invoke find employee number 1. So what is that HTTP request method? Get. So if you check the console, I have cleared the console. There is nothing is there in the console. Now I am sending the request. You can see we have received the employee information. Now you can see which query it is executed. Select query. You can see select query where ID is equal question mark. You can see where ID is equal question mark. So Hibernate is generated select statement to fetch the employee. So everything is happening in background. So what does it mean? So we no need to write the queries to fetch the data, insert data, and update data. So this is how Hibernate or JPA will work. So now, and who is created the table for us? Table also created by Hibernate only. We haven't created the table. So since we have declared at the rate entity, Hibernate created the table for us. So now I will show you one more select statement. So earlier, to select all the employees, we have written named query, right? We have written named query. So two ways are there. We can fetch the details from the database. There are two ways. By writing the normal, by writing the HQL query. HQL query can perform in two ways. By using named query or native query. So now HQL query. So let me show you. Go to your Hibernate repository. So find all employees. So I have created, have fetched all the employees with the help of named query. How we can write the named query? So by calling this create named query method, and it has select all employee. This is just a name of the your named query name, and then you need to pass employee object. So where we have to provide this named query. So with the help of employee entity. So there is employee entity class. We have to declare at the rate named query. So annotations there you have to give your named query name, and then here select F from employee. This is HQL query, guys, not normal query. This is HQL query. This is how we can fetch all the employees. So there is another way also available. So how we can do? So let me comment it out. So there is another way. So how we can do? Let me try. Entity manager dot. So there is a create create there is create query. You can see there is set of available methods. There is another method also available, create query. So it has SQL. You can see fourth one. So there is a create query. It is having SQL string, right? So let me call that method. So by using create query here, we should write the query directly. We no need to write the named query. So now we have to write the query. So what kind of query? HQL query we have to write, not like select a star from employee and all. So we have to write HQL query. How we can write HQL query? Select employee from your entity name, employee E. That's it. So you have to give your Pojo class object. You have to give what is your entity name? Employee. This is the name you have to give while fetching the query, while writing the query. So select E from employee E. So now what it will return query. So finally there is a set of available methods. Get. You can see create query and then get a list of, you can see result list. You can see it has get result list. So it will return list of employees. So why it is giving error? Uh, find all employees. This method must return result of type list of employees. So now we have to return. We have to write return statement. That's it. So this is how also we can fetch all the employees. So since data is changed. So now uh, sorry, server is restarted, right? So let me create the new. Now we don't have any records now. Now I am going to test the new method which I have written. So let me check. There is nothing, no records in the database since server is restarted because I have modified the code. So earlier we are fetching with named query. Earlier we are fetching with named query. Now we are going to fetch all the employees with the help of create query and with HQL by passing HQL query statement. So now let me try. Before that, I want to insert the data. So let me insert the Rohit Sharma. So let me insert Rohit Sharma. So we need to call create employee API. So create employee API and the request should be post. And then we no need to pass we no need to send the ID, right? So now let me send the request. See, you can see, okay, Sehwag. Okay, I'm pausing Sehwag 1 and Virendra Sehwag. So you can go to console, execute, record is inserted. So now I want to fetch the employees. What is that? Find employee. And what is the employee number? Employee number is 1. So let me fetch that API. So what is the HTTP request method? Get. So you can see here we got the response successfully. So there is different ways are there to fetch the records from the database by using entity manager. So we can create named queries as well as we can by executing create query method and by executing create named query method. So two ways are there to fetch employees from database. So let me try change another level. So let me delete this. Just from employee, what will happen? From employee, that's it. So I haven't given select and all. So now let me fetch the records. So I have modified the data, right? So there is no data available as of now. So because I have modified the data, modified the code, since code is modified, our server is restarted. So again we need to insert the data. So now what we are going to test? So still it is working from employee. That's it. You might think some people may have doubts, sir. You said we are not going to write the queries in Hibernate, right? So since you have written the query, this is looks like select E from employee. It looks like a normal query, right? So this is not normal query. This is a HQL query. So to prove that, so to fetch all the employees, you no need to give select E also. Just you need to specify from employee. Now you can confirm that This is a HQL query language or JQL language, right? Okay. Java persistence query language, JPQL or HQL query. So you can write like this also, from employee. That's it. So now you can confirm that this is not a normal query. This is a HQL query or JPQL query. So so server is restarted now again. So now let me go to your H2 console and re-log in again. Connect and click on that employee, execute the query. So since we are using HT in-memory database, we don't have any records in that in the table. So now because we have restarted the server, right? Whenever you restart the server, so you will lost the data in H2 in-memory database. So now again we need to create. So let me try to create one more employee. Create employee and select post method. You guys have to understand the concept, guys. There are a lot of concepts are available here. So I'm going to create that table again. So you can see record is created. So now I want to fetch all the employees. Sorry, fetch a specific employee. Find employee one. So now I am trying to execute this method. You can see what query I have written, HQL query. There is no select and all. I just used from employee. So this is a HQL query or JPQL query. JPQL in the sense Java persistence query language. HQL in the sense Hibernate query language. Still, you are able to get the employee details. Let me fetch. So you can, I send the request. We got the what happen method not allowed. Yes. So because the find employee method will accept only get request. Let me send the request. You can see I am able to fetch the employee. If you go and check the console, it is created. You can see it is created. Select query. You can see last query. What is that? Select query. Let me clear the console. What will happen? Let me go open and let me fetch again. We fetch again, we got the required data, right? You can see there is a SQL query is generated in background. Okay, guys, so this is a HQL query. So JPA, yes, so in our database, right? So database doesn't know HQL query. So whenever you are, this is a relational database, sorry, this is a database, H2 in memory database. So H2, if you write here, select star from employee, H2 console or H2 database doesn't aware HQL query. So that is the reason what Hibernate is doing. Hibernate is trying to convert this HQL query into normal query because our database, any database can understand only SQL queries only. So who is going to generate these statements? Hibernate. So HQL query is converted to the moment you send the request. So this HQL query is converted into normal SQL query in background. So this all the operation will be done by Hibernate. Okay, guys. So this is how. So now we are not writing the direct queries while using JPA and Hibernate. So that is the main feature in JPA. We no need to write the queries. We can deal all the records with for your entity classes. With the entity classes, you can write HQL queries or you can fetch all the records with the help of entity manager. So there is a advantages here. So Hibernate is not database dependent software. Hibernate is a database independent software. So how the JPA is going to work? So whenever we are writing HQL queries or JPQL queries, internally it will convert that HQL query into normal query and it will it will perform the all the database operations. So this is most important concept, guys. You have to make it note and you have to practice as well. So now you got doubt right yesterday. So what is this transactional? Why we are declaring at the rate transactional annotation? So let me remove. What will happen if I remove it? So I just removed it. So if you open the console, there is no error in the data console. So let me clear the console. Now let me send the request. What will happen now? You can see. If I send the request, it is so there is no what is happening. Let me check. Select query. Okay, so this is just select operation, right? Select operation will work. So create operation will not work. So let me create the employee now. Create employee and post request. Now let me try to create the employee. You can see there is a exception returned here. Server is responding back with internal server error. Server is responding with internal server error. You can see 500 error code 500. So what it is saying, no entity manager with actual transaction available for current thread. So what does it mean? So whenever we are working with Hibernate or JPA, whenever we are working with Hibernate or JPA, so it is required each and what are all the database operations we are performing, it should treat it as a transaction. Each and every individual database operation which we are performing should consider it as a one transaction. So we have to declare at the rate transactional annotation. So in JPA or Hibernate, if you want to perform insert or update, nothing but any data manipulation operations, if you want to perform in JPA and Hibernate, it should treat it as a transaction. So each and every database operation should consider it as a transaction. So how we can enable the transaction? So with the help of at the rate transactional annotation. So now you may have doubt what is the purpose declaring at the rate transactional annotation. Let me explain you one story here now. So what I will explain you one story. So let me explain you concept why at the rate transactional came into picture. So let's say currently we are inserting only one record, right? Currently we have only one table. Currently we have only one employee table. So let's say in real-time environment you have multiple tables. Let me tell you one example. Employee. Let's say you have employee table in database. Let's say you have employee table in database, and and also you have AD or E address table. Let's say address table also. Let's say you have two tables in database. Now you are going to store employee information. You are going to store employee info. Currently inserting employee info. So employee info, right? So in future, let's say we are trying to insert employee info with address. So let's say assume we are going to insert employee with address. Okay. So so in that case, what will happen? So there is a two different tables. We are going to, we will have employee. Let's assume we have employee table and we have address table. So in that case, what will happen when you are trying to insert employee? What will happen? So it is going to insert along with address. So when you are going to insert the employee, so you are going to store employee details as well as address details. That means two database table operations. So we have to insert the data in address table as well as we have to insert the data in employee table. So let's assume you are trying to insert the data in these two tables. So let's assume the moment you send the request, you are trying to insert the data, employee is created successfully. Let's assume employee created. Let's assume employee is created successfully. Some other employee table data created successfully. Let's assume you are going to insert the data in database. and employee details. So employee details is having employee information is having address as well. So in database, let's assume you have two tables. When you are trying to insert the data, employee information is inserted. Okay. So now at some other reason, address table is not inserted. What will happen? What is this case? This case is invalid. What we can call this case is invalid. So let's assume, I will show you example in future. Okay, later in later class I will show you inserting multiple tables. As of now, to understand the concept, you can assume it as of now. Okay, so let's say here merge operations, right? So I want to perform in future emp entity manager dot merge. Again I am trying to insert for example here, instead of employee, address table. Let's assume address. So instead of here we will get errors, right? So as a testing purpose I will type in notepad itself only. So you are going to insert entity manager dot merge employee. Let's assume you are trying to insert the employee, as well as employee information will have address table also. So address, so you are the moment trying to insert the employee, two information we have to insert. What is that? Employee information, address information. So assume the moment you insert the record, employee table is inserted but address table is not inserted. So what will happen in that case? This transaction is invalid, right? This transaction is invalid. So employee is inserted in database, but employee address is not inserted in database. Still, your operation is success in database. So this is invalid, right? So how we can revert this transaction? We cannot revert the transaction. So if you want to revert the transaction, we have to write a lot of code. So before in JDBC or plain JDBC, we have to write lot of code to revoke the code. We have to write the code manually to revoke the transaction. So now let me tell you another example. So when you are trying to insert the record, let's say second time, what will happen? Employee table is not inserted. Employee table data is not inserted. This is another approach. Inserted, but address information is inserted. Address, second scenario. This is first scenario and this one is second scenario. In first scenario, employee inserted, but address is not inserted. Assume there is some problem in data in your request. So address is not inserted. Employee details are inserted. So this is invalid. This transaction, we call it as a invalid transaction. Invalid transaction. So similarly, second scenario, you are trying to insert the employee details and address details. So second time, what will happen? Employee is not inserted and address is inserted. So this transaction also invalid. This is also invalid transaction. So third time, let's assume third time what will happen? So let's say both the tables records are inserted. Employee table also inserted and address table also inserted. So this transaction we call it as a successful transaction. So there are three scenarios are there. So whenever first scenario, if assume first scenario is occurred, this is transaction is invalid. Second time also invalid. Third case, transaction is successful. So what will happen? So whenever you are working with a plain JDBC or JDBC template, so without using transactional code, so database is inserting invalid without inserting address and without inserting employee. So that we cannot handle. So how we can handle? We have to write a lot of code, boilerplate code. We have to write. Some people will ask. Some people will tell technically boilerplate code. That means lot of code we have to write to handle that scenarios. So what should we have to do? if employee, when we are trying to insert data in employee or address table, if any of the table is not inserted the data, what we have to do? We have to revoke the transaction. So for that, we need to write the code manually. So whereas if you declare at the rate transactional annotation, what will happen? So whenever there is a problem in data insertion, whether it is in employee or in address table, so any problem occurs, that means employee is not inserted and address information is inserted, that time your transaction will roll back automatically. So we no need to write the code for it. So that is to overcome that problem. So at the rate transactional annotation came into picture. So Spring Boot is sorry, Jakarta API. Jakarta, the transaction that package is having transactional annotation. So what does it mean? So if you are going to perform database operation with multiple tables, if any case, if any one of the table, let's say 5 tables, you are going to insert the data. So out of the 5 tables, 2 tables data is inserted, remaining 3 tables data is not inserted. That time your transaction should revoke the transaction. That means your remaining the data which is inserted in 2 tables, those tables also should revert the transaction. So that is the main purpose of at the rate transactional annotation. I think you got the point, right? So if you want, I will explain you again. What is the main importance of this at the rate transactional is, so whenever you are since the moment you working with single database table, so you have to treat it as a one single transactions. So whenever you are trying to insert data in multiple tables, that time any one of the table is not inserted the data, that time uh, your transaction will be revoked. Your transaction will be revoked because with the help of at the rate transactional annotation. That is the purpose we have in Hibernate or JPA. It is mandatory to specify at the rate transactional annotation. And there is two where we can declare at the rate transactional annotations. In class level as well as in method level also we can declare. So we can declare here as well as we can declare in method level also. So the moment you declared, let me stop the server as of now. So the moment you declare at the transactional annotation in method level, so what will happen? So remaining methods will not be under transaction. So only this method will be available under the transaction. So this will work, but this method and this method will sorry, this update employee method will not work. So the moment you declare at the rate transaction annotation in class level, so all the methods will be under transaction management. So if you declare at the rate transaction annotation in method level, so your only this particular method will be under the transaction mode. So transactional annotation we can declare in two places, whether it is in method level or class level. If you declare in class level, your all the methods will be under the transaction. If you declare in method level, only this particular method will be in under the transaction level. So the importance of the transaction, you got it right. So you can understand more when we are working with associations. So for example, relational one-to-one mapping and one-to-many mapping, so many concepts are there. So that time you can easily understand why we are declaring at the rate transactional annotations. So as of now, I have given you one example. So what is the purpose? Whenever you are trying to work with multiple database insertions, any one of the table is not able to insert the data, that time your transaction should uh, revoke your transaction should be revoked. So whenever your transaction is success, that time only your transaction should commit. Okay. So that is the main purpose of @transactional annotation. So now let me try in this case. What will happen? Let me start the server. I have declared it in method level. What will happen now? Let me run the server. So I have executed the run the server. Now let me go to REST client. Let me send create employee. Okay, I am sending the request. So you can see request is successful because this method is I haven't declared class level @transactional. I have declared method level transactional. So this method is working now. Now let me try update employee. So what will happen now? It will throw exception now. Let me try to invoke update employee API. Now I am sending the request. If you want to update the employee, you need to pass ID, right? So let me pass the ID, comma 1. So or one employee 1 I am going to update. Let me send the request. So if I send the request, you can see JSON parser. Why? Okay, I haven't passed the comma. Okay. Now let me send the request again. You can see it is saying no entity manager with actual transaction available for current thread. Okay, so what does it mean? So now we are trying to perform update operation without @transactional. So this method is not under the transactional mode. So JPA, when we are working with Hibernate or JPA, you should always use you should always enable @transactional annotation. So now let me declare this method also @transactional. So now this method will work as it is. Now it will our request will went successful. So now let me before the update employee send the request. So you can see employee is created. So now let me update the employee. So earlier it is a Shahwag, right? So now I want to change it to Sachin. Now let me send the request. So what is happening? Your Sachin is updated. What does it mean? So now this update employee also working properly. Only thing is that you have to specify whether method level or class level based on your requirement. If you want to restrict only particular method should be under transaction, then you can declare only the specific method @transactional. So if you have a requirement like your all the methods should be under the transaction mode, then you no need to specify as part of individual method level. Directly you can declare it in class level. So the moment you declare in class level, your entire all the methods will be under transaction mode. So this is most important concept, guys. So you have to make it note. You have to make it note. Okay. So today we have discussed regarding. So there is the two ways we can fetch all the employees. What are all the two ways? By using create named query, there is one way. There is another way by executing execute query method. What is this query? HQL query. And what other things we have discussed? Transactional annotation. So when we are working with JP or Hibernate, we have to enable transactional annotation in your repository, and then only you are going to perform your data manipulation operations in database. Okay, guys, and also we have discussed it today. So in background, what is happening? So whenever you are invoking all the card APIs in background internally, our JPA is going to create normal queries. We are not going to write the queries. JPA internally, it will generate the SQL queries and it will perform the database operations. So we are able to perform database operation with entity class with the class level, right? So with the help of entities we are going to perform object relational mapping. So you guys, I hope you guys are understood. So let's connect tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow I am going to explain you. There is different types of relationships are there in Hibernate. Very very important. One to one and one to many and many to many associations are there. So we will create uh, examples with one to one mapping. How we can write one to one mapping. One to one mapping in the sense one employee can have only one user can have one Aadhaar card, or one user can have one passport. So universal mapping, right? So in India, so any user, he can have only one Aadhaar, right? One user cannot have multiple Aadhaar cards. Yeah, yeah. Each and individual user will have only one unique Aadhaar number. So that is called one-to-one mapping. One-to-one mapping in the sense one user can have only one Aadhaar number is nothing but one-to-one relationship. Okay, I will explain you tomorrow with example how we can write the code. Okay, you have to practice these things, guys. If you practice, then only you can remember all those concepts. And also you have to make it note in your notebook all the concept. What is the purpose of at the rate transactional, and how to write named queries, and how to write HQL query, and you have to practice it, and how Hibernate is going to generate SQL queries in background with the help of to enable show hyphen SQL equal true. Spring.jp.show SQL is equal true by writing enabling this property in application.properties file. You can see what is happening in background. So I will show you more in depth tomorrow. Okay, so we can see request also. So let's say if you send the request, right? If you send the request, we don't know what is happening in background. We don't know what request came inside, what request went to the server. We don't know anything, right? So in background, so I will show you more in depth tomorrow. We can log our request also. You can see whatever you send the request from the REST client, we can capture that request as well. So how we can capture, I will explain you tomorrow. I will explain you more in depth in tomorrow. Okay, thank you, guys.